I'm driving to high level. It's beautiful. But I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, which they call the right side of the road. And everything is yellow. Even the middle line is yellow. Traveling here was quite an experience, and God was dealing with me on the road, and He was like telling me, Annalise, you have to have the right perspective of what you're doing. You see, because I want to go over the speed limit all the time, and I've got to check myself, because in North Canada, if you go over the speed limit at certain times, they sort of take away your license. And it's like, you might think, it's crazy to drive like this, but I promise you, when the weather changes, all of a sudden you realize why they do what they do. They do not have lions, and they do not have tigers, and they do not have all these animals, but they do have moose and elk and deer, and these animals just jump right in front of you. Now, I've seen a picture of an accident of Pastor Brent King. Coming here, there was 2 moose on the road that was taken out by cars. So there's a reason why the speed limit is a certain way. You have to come into another country with the right perspective. You see, I've just been in Africa, and that was crazy driving. The fun dat ons nog gehad het. Julle, gee pad, kom ons. Sien julle? Het julle daai autoriteit gesien?
En ek het dit vasgevang.
Which is that potholes, and every 100 kilometers about people stop you and they try to bribe you with money, and there's a way you get through it. But if you got the wrong perspective and you get angry, well, you're not going to make it there. So it's not compromising, it's understanding where you are and how to conduct yourself where you are. I remember the Bible school students, they really used this, because people are so used to being stopped in Africa. They would, while we were busy fixing tires because of the terrible road, and these guys would go over and stop all the cars. Everybody would stop, and they'd say, "Sir, God said we must pray for you." And they were on an evangelistic trail.
We want to pray for you. We must pray for you. You're right. Thank you, Jesus. What's your name? Thank you for his life.
You can't do that here. It's totally different. Young guys have asked me, have you been in the ditch? And I'm like, ditch? I'm not going to the ditch. And for the first time, I see what it looks like when people were in the ditch. Man, the first trip I had coming up from Edmonton to Grand Prairie, we hit snow. First winter snow. It is beautiful. As you can see, it's just like crazy. You can't describe to people how beautiful this is. And I was big mouth. Yeah, I'll drive in the snow, I'll drive in the ice. Till it really hit. I was sitting in the back of the car thanking God that Pastor Brent was driving and not me. Another car in the ditch. It is crazy. You can't explain it. It's a slippy slide. And when you come to Canada, you realize all these big cars. Oh, in the beginning I thought, what's wrong with these people? They all have these big trucks. And when you get to a traffic light, everybody goes, hum, hum, hum. And yet when they drive, they just go so slow. All these big trucks. I thought, you know, if I've got a big truck like that, I'm going to push this thing. But then you realize why they have the big trucks. As soon as the weather changes, you know why they have these big trucks. This is the ditch. And there's a car in the ditch, if you can see. It is really going crazy. The distances these people drive in Canada and America, it is totally a different world. They have these beautiful highways, but the distances is 6-8 hours. That's nothing. In South Africa, if I drive 8 hours, I'm on the East Coast. If I drive 14 hours back, I'm on the West Coast. Here, no, it just goes on and on and on and on. If you drive in Switzerland, it's like they say, Oh no, it's 120 kilometers. It's so far. But the driving is so different because the driving is up, in, out, up, down, up, round the corner for 120 kilometers. And every 10 kilometers there's a little town. Every 20 kilometers there's a little town, and you've got to pass through that, and all the houses are built right on the road. It's totally a different world. Seychelles is again a totally different place. Oh my word. In 4 to 6 hours you can literally drive around the island if you don't go over the hilltop. But the driving is like very narrow roads with these small cars, and they drive around those bends. You cannot believe it. And when you drive there, you go like left, right, and it's beautiful. Totally a different world. And you have to adapt to that driving. Here it's like open and what? You can't believe it. It just goes on forever and ever. They say in Alberta the sky is big because you can see forever. But you have to understand where you are and where you're driving and get the right perspective on it. If you do not have the right perspective, you're going to get into big trouble and you will not reach your destiny. Oh my word. Last time we came in here there was snow. Wow, look at the trees. The minute we get born again, we find ourselves in a place where there's two worlds. We're not from the world, but we're in the world. And Jesus said in John 17, he says, Father, I pray that you do not take them from the world. And this is what Christians always want to do. We want to leave, you know. We want to go to heaven where everything is working. But Jesus brought heaven right down to us. He said, no one has seen the Father except he that comes from heaven, who is in heaven, and he was standing with his disciples. So we found ourselves in a dual situation. And I don't think God wants us to be schizophrenic though. But we have to understand that we cannot live this supernatural life with these principles. We have to live this life with those principles because Jesus brought it right back into our realm. And when we understand that we are not from the world but in the world, he says in the message, why do we let the world that knows nothing about love, nothing about life, teach us how to live?
My name is Kara.
I'm Tanner.
Hi, I'm Kaylee.
And they are my friends, and we're going to go gallivanting now. So we find ourselves on this earth, but in another realm of the supernatural. And we have to understand, because God wants us to step into our eternal purpose and reach our destiny. Our lives become the road he travels. Psalm 84. How blessed are those whose lives become the road he travels. They wind up the mountain. They discover cool springs, but around the last corner, Zion, God in full view. God wants us to live this supernatural life right here, and that will bring us out of this natural world, and that it doesn't matter what situation we are in, because we've got a heavenly perspective. We can make it. He says, do not fret, I have overcome the world. We can be overcomers right here and right now. We just have to get the perspective of the Spirit. That's why the Word says, hear what the Spirit says.
Wait, there's no mountain too great. Heed these words and have faith. Oh, have faith.